Hello everyone out there in tax land, Dan the tax man here, tax attorney with Community Tax, and today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite client success stories. Now before I get into it, please note that not all cases are the same and past success does not guarantee future success. But anyway, here we go. So I had this client, and this client was a real estate agent. She was a good real estate agent, but she was not good with tax issues, okay? So she was self-employed, did not make her estimated tax payments, did not file, eventually started getting some angry letters from the IRS, and eventually called us at Community Tax. The first thing we did was file her unfiled tax returns, get her balances due on the account, and then get her ready for her resolution. And as soon as she was ready for that resolution, she got linked up with me. Now I did a financial statement with her. I went through her income, her expenses, her equity and assets, and I determined that she'd be a good candidate for the offer and compromise program. And that's the settlement program with the IRS. It's by far the best program that they offer, but it can be difficult to qualify. So we put the financials together, and I got her income and expenses from her. And when you're doing these financial statements, there are these things called the collection standards. These are these standards that the IRS produces. They're standard amounts for certain expense categories like food, clothing, and miscellaneous, housing, your car payment, your out-of-pocket medical. And in general, these standards are really useful because as long as what you're claiming is at or below the standard, you usually don't need to prove every penny of expense that you're claiming of that standard. So it's really useful for things like food, clothing, and miscellaneous. I really don't want to get together every grocery bill that you have and every ticket to the loan, receipt from the Lone Star Steakhouse that you bring in. I really don't want to do that. And these standards make it really nice because again, as long as we claim that amount or less, we don't necessarily need to always prove it. But these standards can also operate as a cap. So if you're above that standard, in general, the IRS will not count the expense above that standard. It's considered a luxury, and they won't let you pay for a luxury before you pay for them. So again, in general, these standards can operate as caps. Anyway, so we submitted the application. We waited the 6 months, what it usually takes for the IRS to get back with their response. And the response that came back was that our settlement request was rejected. And it was rejected because my client's housing expenses were over the standard. She spent more than the IRS standard for that county, so the IRS did not count those expenses and rejected the settlement. So this was, of course, terrible news for myself and my client. We were just devastated, but the IRS gives you the option to appeal. So when I spoke with her and we put together our appeal, and I came up with this idea. Now, normally the IRS doesn't deviate from those standards. Okay, the standard is the standard is the standard. But they'll allow an exception to that. They'll allow expenses above the standard if you can give them a good reason. So here's the reason that I came up with. I said, listen, IRS, my client's a real estate agent. Her income is as high as it is because she lives in the area where she sells real estate. If she didn't live in that area, she'd have nowhere near the success level selling real estate in that same area. And if you're going to count her full real estate income, you really need to count her own full real estate expense because again, it's the expertise, the insider knowledge of living in that area that lets her sell homes in that same area. So if we're counting all the income, we got to count all of her real estate expense as well, all of her personal real estate expense as well. We submitted this through and it was a winner. It's not often that the IRS grants exceptions to their own rules, but in this case, for this taxpayer, I got them to grant an exception to their own rules. So of course we were, both ecstatic. I love winning cases. I love winning them because, professionally, it's one of the reasons why I chose this job was the idea of facing off against the IRS. And of course, I always love delivering great results for my clients. And in this case, we got a great result. Her settlement went through. She paid off her taxes in full, and she was thrilled. And if you'd like your own tax expert to take a look at your situation and see if we might be able to craft a resolution option for you, give Community Tax a call. 1-800-424-8332. And for our Spanish speakers out there, we have a dedicated Spanish line at 888-523-6606. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dan, the Taxman, relaying to you one of my favorite client success stories, and I will see you next time.